All right, so I'll call this P&G meeting to order at 4:02. First item is to approve the April 8th minutes.
I guess that's on me to move
Yeah.
to approve them.
I'll second it.
Moved.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we'll jump right into
Here
the
comes-
800 series, and there's Paul, he's here. Jump right into the 800 series. So let's go. 8011. Any corrections, questions, concerns? All right. 801.2. All right. I'm just going to keep moving until I see somebody either wave their hand or cough or something. 801.3. Educational specifications for buildings and sites. All right. 801.3G1. Facility modification guideline. Okay. 801.3G2. New school name guideline. What? Sorry, my internet sucks. Okay, 801.3G4, factors for facilities planning.
Is this the stuff that we ran into all over the place, but don't really know where they all came from, and they all get in the way of each other?
I think so, yeah, Steve?
I'm still trying to get mine to come up here.
Oh. So we don't know if he has questions or not, but I think that is. Paul, do you have any?
I know we've had them in the past, right? And it even says there right in the header that they contradict each other in a lot of places, and kind of banged our head against the wall a little bit as we kind of went through some of those before, and I didn't know if it's worth it. I mean, this would be the time to edit it if we think it's kind of, I don't know, not helpful. I mean, I think the problem is that.
Sorry, which one are you on? Because it took me, like, my internet just
801.3G4, factors for facilities planning.
All right, hold on. G4.
You know, it's the list of 15 things to take into consideration as you're where you're going to put a building and things like that. And I mean, I think one of the biggest problems that we've had with it is, yeah, it's all important stuff, but you can't do all of it at the same time. And so I guess I don't know whether it's worth it to edit it because of past frustrations or just leave it be.
I guess, we've always, if you look at the lineup above there, it says it's not prioritized, and it says that they may work against each other as part of the process. I think it gives the board the opportunity to share with the public that they are indeed looking at each of these. But then it also gives the board the opportunity that, given the particular scenario that we're facing, to choose one over the other and then to explain why they're doing it. So I think it gives you a pretty wide latitude. So that might be something to think about.
My only suggestion would be that we get rid of the numbers and just put like dash marks in there.
Sure, just bullet it. Yep. So then there isn't no perception of.
Yeah. Because even though you say not to prioritize it, I think people are always like, well, safety is the number 2 thing. And then they just do that.
Yeah, I like having the list, even though sometimes we bang our head against the wall when we're looking at it. But I think, to Steve's point, it does give the public an idea of everything that we're looking at. And then as we discuss more about our facilities, and what item rises to the top for the board and why.
Works for me.
All
Take
right.
the numbers off. I think that's a nice start.
Yep. Okay, 801.4, site acquisition.
Short and sweet. I like it.
Yep. 802.1, maintenance schedule. Nothing? Okay. 802.1 G1, grounds pesticides guidelines. With this, and I couldn't find it, but the committee that worked on some of the guidelines on pesticides, that's all included in here, or not? Paul, I see you shaking your head. It is. Okay, I couldn't compare the two, so that was my only question. 802.2, requests for improvements.
This just is laying out when, well, you know, what different dollar amounts things rise to different levels of approval. Is that kind of how that's set up?
Mm-hmm. So if it's under 25,000, the super may approve it. Anything above that has to come before the board.
I'm okay with the way it is. I'm just curious, is that our own number that we put in there, or is that some sort of state thing?
Actually, the state number is far higher than that. I think we decided to reduce it. I gotta get Dwayne's face back up on the screen here. Do you remember that, Dwayne? Isn't the state latitude number significantly higher than that? We dialed it way back to 25,000.
I think that's what you and Craig and I worked out years ago.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think the state threshold is 100,000 or something like that.
That's what we've been living with anyways, the 25,000, so.
Yeah, I think the state was a lot higher, and we just decided that from a visual standpoint, we didn't like leaving it that high, so we dialed it back.
Okay,
Good.
thanks.
802.3, emergency repairs. Okay. 802.4, capital assets.
I think these next several pages kind of go to what we all had to hear recently about our stuff that was for sale, and kind of what we do with it. The one question I have is sort of this, it's a very generic question to all of those things, because it talks about, you know, if the value is over this amount, you do this, if it's under this amount, you do that. And I guess, how do we determine that value? Because what I've always said is the value is whatever somebody's willing to pay for it. But if we have to have a number to start with before we decide whether it goes this route or that route, like, how do we determine those things?
Well, one way to do it would be replacement value if you had to purchase a similar piece of equipment, you know, of a similar age. And we tried to, just for clarification on the equipment that we just recently disposed of, we actually had a millwright come in and look at them and tell us what he thought it was worth. So it was, that's how we judged it to be less than the 5,000 at the time, and the fact that it was aged. But
So
that's the only way.
Case by case, really. Right?
Excuse me?
Case by case basis, then?
It is, but you really, the only way for me to do it, and it says the facility director in that guideline, is the value is under 5,000. Well, the only way to do it is to get an appraisal from somebody that knows the equipment. So that'd be my advice.
Fair enough.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns? 802.4 R1 goes along with capital assets regulation. Anything there? Okay. 802.4 R2, capital assets management system definitions. So on on page 3, there is a highlighted portion that we need to decide the capitalization threshold in that first paragraph. So do you want to stick with 5,000 or is there something else? I don't know if people are with me. I need to see.
Sorry, Ruthina, which one is this?
We're on, we're on 802.4 R2,
It's
page
page 23.
yeah, oh yeah, page 23.
It's like alphabet soup.
So it's under machinery and equipment.
What's the issue?
We need to, you see the yellow highlighted portion? So there needs to be a dollar amount set there. So I'm asking, should it be the 5,000? What makes sense?
Sorry, I'm not ignoring you, but for some reason mine isn't working correctly and the pages are out of order as I'm
That's
reading
what I was
through
going to
them.
say too.
And so
Right.
that's why I'm having trouble following you, is because I can't find it and then I'm not seeing this highlight. So I'm not exactly sure.
Thank God that wasn't just me then.
Yeah.
'Cause I thought
Yeah, like I don't know where
Let me
she's
see if I
talking
can share my
about.
Same
screen. No,
I'm
I
gonna
can't
go with
share my
user
screen.
error.
Yeah.
no, not
So,
user
Christina, I
error,
think the
Sean.
answer is we aren't with you right now.
Okay. I was like, what is wrong?
Got you.
Thank
I'm with you.
I don't
You
have
were
a
ripping through
highlighted
them
portion
before,
on
and I was
mine
like,
either.
I can't.
Kim,
get this to
can you
work.
share the screen? I mean, can
Yeah,
you?
it shows page 23 of 33 on mine. Hold on here a second.
Yeah, mine too.
That's what I got now.
I didn't have the R. Yeah, when you were.
There we
Mine
go. Thank you,
legitimately
Kim.
jumps from 23 to 29. And so I
Okay.
don't have no idea what's going on.
This is the page in question.
Makes a lot more
So,
sense.
okay. So that's where I'm like, should we put 5,000 there? What should we actually put, people?
Okay.
Well, I'd suggest 25,000 as a starting point, but
25
what? That's just my suggestion.
board members? Any?
It kind of coincides with board.
It does.
Calls.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right. 25,000, Paul, Sean, up, down, something.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to pretend like everybody's with me.
Now, Chase, you want me to keep scrolling since you,
I was just gonna say, hey, Kim, I wouldn't mind if you just went on with
Sure.
this and I'll just follow along.
There
Yep.
we go.
Yep.
I'll just keep it.
FYI, everybody, I had to close out of that file and reload it. When I reloaded it, it then didn't have all the blank pages that it did the first time. So I don't know what happened.
Okay.
I'll just keep it up.
So 802.5, building sites adaptations for persons with disabilities.
Good.
Nope, good, all right. 802 point, oh, wait,
Fact of the matter is that this refers to existing sites because all new sites have to adapt to it by code.
okay,
Currently,
So-
so it says buildings currently in use will be, and that's fine. That's what we're doing.
okay. So 802.6, vandalism.
Yep, vandalism bad.
Okay. 802.7, energy conservation. And there's a
Okay, now
highlight.
I'm goofy.
Oh, see, there we go.
This is what I have.
Okay,
Sean,
that's not where
user
we're
user
at.
error, right, Sean? User error.
Hmm.
That's weird.
Kim, can you close it and try and reopen it? Steve said
Sure.
that seemed to
Yeah,
work.
that's what worked for me.
So then go to 802.7.
Oh, I don't know if it's gonna let me do anything here. Hold on.
Yeah, it's got a highlighted portion on that too. And
Yeah,
I don't know if it's as simple as we put a line in that says, refer to our, I can't even remember what it's called.
Well, I'm not getting. Gonna make y'all sick here. Sorry.
Yeah, that is not the right
It's-
order. It's
no.
page 26.
Why is that?
Oh my sweet
Jesus. I can't even find 26.
Make it
Well,
meet this.
Mine's getting worse as I open
See,
it.
mine goes 23 to
Let's see.
29, Shane.
Yeah.
So is it
Order.
possible, Kim, can you share, can you give me share screen
I was like,
privileges?
I think I should be able to. Oh no, I can't.
I wonder if I just stop share, if you can just share. Do you have that option on the bottom of your?
Yeah, but it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Hmm. Let's see.
And we were doing so well. We were just
Oh,
moving
we were just
along.
going right through and leave it to me. Hold on here.
That's because none of us could read it.
I'm going to stop share. For a second.
Clearly,
Kim, do you have a little white arrow down by your share screen? That green share screen at the bottom, is there a little white arrow?
Yep.
So click on that. and then
Analyst.
go
There you
to-
go. God, you're so smart, Diane.
It's all right.
she is smart. Okay,
Try that.
can you see my screen?
Yeah.
What's wrong?
No, we can't.
No.
It's
We
weird.
can.
Oh, okay, I'm like, do I
It's
have other stuff
awesome.
open? Okay. So 802.7, as Sean was mentioning, the highlighted portion at the bottom. What were you saying, Sean?
Well, we have a whole plan, right? Our policy on
Energy.
energy and our carbon footprint and all that stuff. I don't know if we just refer to that or put it in here as maybe it is in here as a reference, but I can't even remember what it's called now at this point. But you know what I'm talking about.
Our climate action plan.
Yes, that thing.
Yes, there. Okay. Something like what the district will follow the climate action plan as specified. I don't know.
I mean, you could just change energy conservation guidelines to climate action plan.
Okay.
Yeah, conservation guidelines and action plans or something like
Yeah,
that. Use
climate
that
action,
over
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Can we just take out this whole policy and replace it with ours?
I'm sorry, what, Paul?
Could we just take out this whole policy and replace it with what we've done?
So Jake, we could. Does anybody see a problem with that?
Only thing I'd say is this is day-to-day activities for employees of the district, because it's more pertains to that than the overall energy conservation of buildings. There's a difference.
Okay.
So I don't know, I'm just pointing that out. It's the way I read it. Employees turn lights on and off. Well, it's a no-brainer, but apparently they felt the need to tell them.
But I think, and well, part of it is we're still developing that, right? Because the pandemic kind of hit us at a time where we haven't had that. But Joanne, what I took away from the last work session is they're wanting our plan to have things like goals like that in it.
Yeah. I don't disagree. I'm just stating the obvious with this one. It's a little
Yeah.
more simple than a climate action plan. So maybe just a paragraph stating that we're working on developing that plan and that should be incorporated. That's what Paul just said, I think.
Okay, so we're going back to the suggestion of referring to our climate action plan.
Sorry, yeah.
Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
Yep.
803.1, disposition of obsolete equipment.
I don't know anything about disposition of school building or anything of that nature, so.
Depends on how you define disposition, Paul.
Yeah. No.
Too soon.
Never too soon.
Okay. Any questions or concerns regarding this besides
The-
Paul?
The only thing that popped out to me was that the it's the first line of the second paragraph saying that it's going to be sold or disposed of in a manner determined by the board. But it says stuff that's less than 5,000. It actually says, what the plan is. Like, I don't know that line needs to be in there because we're not going to do it as they come up, right? There's
Right.
going to be a policy on what to do with it. We're not going to decide in the moment. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So then that first line,
What, isn't that what we just talked about, equipment less than $5,000? Why do you even want to be involved?
Exactly.
right, that's what he's saying. Yeah, that's what he's saying. So that first line could come out, but then we have to make the rest of the paragraph make sense. So
Is the
instead
rest
of
of the paragraph true?
So you just think the first line's repetitive, Sean, that we already speak to that, so why would you speak to it again?
Yeah, we're writing a policy about what we're doing with it, and then it's going to say that we're going to determine what the policy is inside the policy. So it seems weird. But for stuff that is being sold for under $5,000, I don't know that we're publishing that in a newspaper, are we? 2 consecutive weeks? Like, that's not what we're doing.
Well, we're in the modern world. We've been posting on gov.deals, which is public.
Right. Because I think doesn't this language, isn't this the basis for this when there used to be all those requirements for newspaper publishing and the state's been slowly peeling those back?
I guess my recommendation would be to strike the whole second paragraph because the third paragraph talks about the higher value
Public
stuff
hearing,
that
yeah.
we're probably going to handle a little bit differently.
Yeah,
So if none of it's true, it seems like you would just get rid of that second paragraph, but maybe I'm missing something.
no, I don't know, I would agree unless I'm also missing something that we strike the second paragraph. Maybe Chase, look like you got a thought.
I
Share.
just wondered, I mean, you don't want people out there saying, well, you talk about things that are at 5,000, what about things under 5,000? So if the idea is that the board doesn't need to get involved, maybe it's just, will be sold, will dispose of it in a manner determined by the superintendent or designee. And just leave that one line so it gives some clarification on what we're doing with things under 5,000, then more detail about
What we're
public
doing
hearing
with
at
it
5,000.
over.
Right, yeah.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So it doesn't, okay.
And then you can strike the rest of it, I think.
So
Don
it would
suggests.
just be obsolete equipment having a value of less than 5,000 will be sold or disposed of in a manner determined by the superintendent or designee. Guys, okay with that? Okay,
Yeah. So the third paragraph, can we go back?
yep,
So Paul, you may recall, I don't know if Sean was on the board yet, but we donated a bunch of student desks to a charitable organization that shipped them to Africa. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And we did that with board approval, but I don't recall that we ever had a public hearing for that. And that was a semi-load of furniture. Even though
And
it was used furniture, someone could have easily said it was worth more than 5,000. So I guess my point is a board meeting a public hearing? That,
Not unless it's designated that way.
right. But I think it says, I mean, what you just said, it was donated. This, I think, talks about selling.
all right, thank you.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Okay.
disposal, I guess, but
Um,
I guess it does say proposed sale.
Yeah,
I guess I would argue, because there's some definitions earlier on what, capital equipment is of value, and I don't know if you're taking it one piece at a time or an aggregate, right? Like one desk isn't going to be $5,000.
mm-mm.
So is each one considered its own thing, or is it here's 100 desks or whatever the number was. I think you can argue the semantics one way or the other to make your
Well,
point.
state auditors will look at it in the aggregate and not individually, if they ever came to question it, in my experience.
But we're okay with that as is though, right? Okay, I'm gonna take that as a yes. 803.1 G1. And so this gets into the actual disposition of the equipment over, under 5,000 and over. People want me to scroll to the next page? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm good with that one.
Okay. Second page of this guideline.
Just going back to that previous page.
Yep.
Did you conflict yourself now at all with what you did? Is that what you're gonna say, Paul?
No, scroll down a little bit. It's just a title.
Where?
Oh yeah, it talks about the CFO. I knew it was in there somewhere.
Which we don't have.
Oh.
Do you want to say business office or something like that, Chase?
Yeah.
Or-
Say that again, Sean.
Use
just
some
change it
business
from
office.
CFO to like business office or something like that.
Yeah, that's fine. Business office or soup, or, I mean, Dwayne gives those to me right now, but I mean, you know, we can do it to the soup and then, or designee if we want to make sure we leave ourselves that
Wiggle room.
wiggle room in case we
Yep.
change the org chart again.
That'd be the way to do it.
Yep. So in those, in 1 and 2, change that, Cam. All right, anything on page 2?
That it again talks about putting it in the paper for 2 consecutive weeks on number 3 there. It's still on the stuff under $5,000. So it's this basically the same stuff that we struck earlier.
Yeah.
That's what I was gonna jump in with. You took out the language around, and then this comes back with more detailed language about how to do the under 5. So you probably want to be consistent with whatever you do on the 2.
Yeah, I think in this case, it's just that number 3 needs to come out because everything else is like, here's
The
the different
same.
ways we might get rid of it. But I don't know that any of them need to be tied to putting it in the newspaper for 2 weeks.
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm fine with taking that out. Okay. Any changes when the equipment has a value of greater than 5,000? No? All right. 803.2, lease, sale, or disposal of school district buildings and sites. See if I can get, oh, there we go, to fit better. Anything? I don't know
I
if
was
people
waiting
are
for Paul
reading.
to chime in with follow whatever the state Supreme Court tells us to do.
Besides that,
Well, you can just follow what I say, I guess, because we were in the right. Is that right? So
Yep.
okay. 804.1, facilities inspections.
You know, we currently do that with our insurance agent. Every year they walk the buildings with our head custodians and they make notations, and we also do it fire inspections every year. So we're pretty well covered. I guess I just
Mhm.
leave it the way it is. Authorized agencies can be fire department and or insurance agents or.
Right.
Or
Okay. 804.2 District Emergency Operations Plans. No?
I was just curious, is this, because we got some sort of state direction last year, right? Like that we had to create very specific emergency plans that included all these random things. I
Theirs
don't know,
was create a plan.
that was
That's as
it.
far as, yep.
Is this language here go with the plan we created, or is it contradictory at all? It looks very generic to me, so I think it's probably
Yeah,
fine.
I saw it as very generic, Steve and Matt. I think that our plans fit within
Yeah.
this.
Yep.
Yeah, I think they
Natural
do.
disasters, active shooters, yeah,
Yeah.
emergencies, yeah, we have
We
those.
have it all, I think we have it all covered.
I mean, that whole plan that we had, that we got last year, that was, like it says in here, is confidential. That covers, everything in there is covered on this
Mhm.
policy.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. 804.4 Asbestos containing material.
so
No.
just so you know, we do have an asbestos plan for every building. We've fortunately been able to remove a lot of it through the renovation process, but we do keep that updated on an annual basis and it is available. So.
All right. Besides that, anything with that, or I'm going to close 800 series.
Looks good.
All right. Let's jump into the fun of 500. Thank you, Diane, because I guess she'll be with us for the next couple of P&G meetings because this is 125 pages.
There's a little more meat to this one.
Yeah.
That's so optimistic. So optimistic of
Why?
you.
Well, the last one took us, what, 10
I know.
meetings or something?
It did forever.
Hey, Dwayne, you can go. You don't need to
Yes,
stay
thank you,
around for this.
Dwayne, for
Dwayne.
staying with us. I appreciate it.
I could stay and entertain myself, but I'll go.
All right. Bye. All right.
We're
500.
fun.
We are. Objectives for equal educational opportunities for students. And I have to admit, I only got to page maybe 10 of trying to look through this before tonight. Anything here?
I don't have anything.
You said you're reading?
No, I don't have anything on this
Oh,
one.
okay.
I know I tried to run through it fairly quick like you did, and I got maybe past page 10, but I didn't get through the whole thing. And I know a little bit later there's some stuff I have some questions about.
But just down on what? Maybe the third paragraph from the bottom, all these blanks, do we have to fill in stuff there, I'm assuming?
Yeah, and I can get that done.
Okay, thank you. Besides that, nothing? Sorry,
So-
tell me if I'm scrolling too fast. 501.1, resident students.
It's like a very legal description.
Looks good. Okay. 501.2, non-resident students. So as I'm waiting for confirmation, I'm primarily looking at Diane and Chase to give me a nod or something to let me know that we're okay or if there's some issues there. So just so you know.
Actually, a lot of these Matt and Amy probably know.
Oh, Matt and Amy too. There we go.
On most of these.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was just staying around because those two stayed for the ops stuff.
Well, I just need
This is-
somebody to
Well, thanks
just
for the
say,
vote of confidence, Chase. Yeah.
help us
Appreciate
keep
the support.
moving.
I thought you disappeared off the screen. Thought I was safe.
That one looks
Make-
fine, Ruthie.
Okay,
That looks good.
thank you. 501.3. What? Yeah. Sorry.
You might want to
Anything
just
there?
match the superintendent or designee language there at the bottom.
Okay.
The other thing I thought that they had implemented over the last couple of years is if you were going to send your kiddo to preschool, that you needed to keep sending them there. And I don't know if that's in that language.
That if you were going to start sending your kid to preschool, you have to
Mhm.
continue. Is that what you just said, Amy?
Yeah,
But they had preschool was a separate section, but
Yeah.
I don't know if there's more there or not. Maybe I'm wrong.
But does it matter? Because at the very top, it talks about the age of the students from 6 to 16.
and
So,
You're
that's what
just
it-
wondering if it
I'm-
turns into compulsory if they start preschool, right, Amy? Then it's
Right.
compulsory from there
They
on out.
they may do that at some point, but this is fine because it's accurate. I just don't know if they're going to say anything about PK later.
okay. 501.4. Anything there matter, Amy?
A lot of this stuff comes from the state, right?
Yep. Because
Yep.
at the bottom, it's
Well-
the codes, legal references at the bottom.
Reason for suspension or expulsion, that seems odd, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, well, if they're not in yet, right?
How do you, yeah.
I mean, like we dealt with different things. If they didn't have their immunizations in, they wouldn't be able to continue to
Mhm.
attend. We dealt with that throughout the school year, but we wouldn't ever classify that as a suspension or expulsion. So
And
I don't know if
especially
that language
prior
is
to
right
enrollment.
code or not, but that doesn't seem to fit well.
Would,
Now,
would you
with the,
leave,
with the, im- with the immunizations though, if they have not started, if they produce no credit at all, we're not supposed to allow them to enroll.
Right.
Right?
So if you
we
just
do
take
the
out-
deny admission part, but we wouldn't do it suspension expulsion, right?
Right.
so just take out those couple words, the suspension and expulsion, just have its reason for denying admission.
Yep.
Yeah.
Makes sense
Okay.
to me.
501.5. So then in the bottom paragraph, should we still say, I mean, I'm assuming it should be, it's the responsibility of the superintendent or designee to make recommendations to the board annually? Or do we leave it just with the super?
If you've been using or designee throughout, you could just continue to do that. The only
Mhm.
thing I wondered is here it says K through 5. Should that be K through 6 to match the way we're structuring buildings? Or
Mhm.
Yeah,
What they're referring to in that second paragraph is legislation that happened, I don't know if it was last spring or 2 springs ago, where basically it was for families that had twins. And they said, we should,
Oh, I
They have the
remember.
right
Allow
to keep
parents-
them in the same class. Yeah.
so I'm thinking that that's code language right there in that second
Okay.
paragraph.
But I agree with Matt. Where does the 6th grade, does that matter? I mean, for us, it does. It's not middle school, so.
But I think Amy's right. I think that might come right out of code that it's only a fifth grade
that we
issue.
only have to do that for K through
Mhm.
5, and then so are people saying we need to have something else in there talking about what we do for 6th grade, or just leave it with
No, I
what comes
think we just
directly from
leave-
code?
I think we just leave it silent.
Okay, and so besides the change to the last paragraph, nothing else. Okay. 501.5 G1.
I think we just saw that one.
Yep. But this only has 14, the other one have 15. So besides taking
That's
away the numbers, what happened to the last one?
It's not important for this policy.
Okay, that's the only thing I noticed, like, but take away the numbers and dash marks to mirror that.
Agreed.
All right. 501.6. So then do we also do superintendent and or designee will determine the amount of credits to be transferred in the third paragraph?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. Also at the, yeah, I was just about to say that. Second paragraph too. Anything else there? Oh no, did we lose Kim?
Yep, she's gone.
Okay. There she is.
There she is.
501.7. See, we all panicked, Kim.
I did too. Thinking, oh my God, did they lose the whole Zoom session? I don't know what happened.
501.7. Anything here?
I don't think so.
Is there any place you guys have just left it superintendent, or should we just make a mark that anytime it says superintendent, put that org designee in?
I believe every time we've had that, we've said or designee.
Okay.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, Sean,
No,
Chase,
I think
somebody.
I think that sounds right. We could probably just do a find all, change all.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Kim will make a note of that, so that way we don't have to keep pointing that out. Unless that's helpful, Kim.
It is, thank you.
Okay, we will.
No, it's not helpful for you to keep doing it. I
Oh,
what I mean.
gotcha, okay.
I know that everywhere it says that, I'll go do the find all, change all, and make it superintendent or
Too
designate.
late. We're telling you every
Okay.
time.
Yep,
There
you don't
we
have to. Well, if you want to.
So anything else on 501.7? No? 501.8? Short, sweet, hopefully simple. Okay. 501.9, we have yellow. So that means we actually do need to talk about what goes in the yellow. So it lists all the absences that can be approved. Is something else missing out of there?
I don't know. I guess I'd just be, I don't know, take out the highlight and the brackets and call it good, because it says it includes but not limited to, and it's
Right.
things that we would use. I don't, unless you had something specific you wanted to add. I mean, we have the not limited to in there, so. sort
Okay,
of
I'm fine with taking out the
discretionary.
bracket. Yep.
Hey, Steve, I have a question before we kind of move on and
Yeah.
seeing it. So that's why I wonder, in the 501s, we're talking about attendance center assignment and all that. Should there be somewhere in there our policy on transfers within the district, voluntary transfers? Because it talks about open enrollment.
Yeah, you think and like add it as a regulation or a guideline so that it's not just on the website but also on policy.
Right, because we wrote it as like this is our policy on, so you can reference it, but it's nowhere in here.
Pretty-
so it's somewhere in
Pretty
there.
straightforward to add that. Amy, what do you think? Any issues with that?
No, just that since it's in policy, will it be stated as a policy or a regulation, or what will it be stated as? The reason I'm asking is we would have to bring it forward every year then, even when we're just changing the dates and things like that.
I think he's talking about not the forms itself, but that, oh, you're thinking about because the midline could change every year type of thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for the
that's a good.
equity balance and all that.
But I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, team, but guidelines and rules, while living inside the policy manual, can be changed without necessarily being brought back to the board every year for revision, because some of those are forms and other supporting documents.
You are right, Steve. It's just policy that has to be approved by the board.
Yeah, so that way, Amy, it could be in there as so we can link to it, we can point to it, but then we can just update it every year so that the designations for the schools are correct without necessarily having to come back to the board each time for approval. So Paul, then it would actually be living somewhere besides just on the website. So I think there's definite value to that.
Okay. Anything else, guys?
I don't think we answered the attendance.
Oh, we did.
That school-sponsored activity. I'm not sure if Matt has a
Thank
guideline
you.
on that.
So is there a guideline?
No, I don't think so. I'm thinking here. Sorry, I'm not ignoring you.
No, I know.
Think about what we got. Students who wish to participate in school sponsor. Well, I know it wouldn't be full day. It would just be if it's a half day or not. I could check on that one and get back to you guys to see if we have anything there.
Okay.
Is
We
it,
probably have a practice, and my guess is the practice might not be consistent. So I'll check on that because that could help us if it's not.
yeah, I guess I would look at it as it could be, I'm reading it in two different ways, because in my head I was thinking, oh, the activity is taking them out of school for half the day. They should be in school the other half of the day, but it could be they're sick and they stayed home from school all day, but then went to football practice.
Right. That's what my head was at, is attending practices or athletic events if they haven't been at school for a portion of the day.
Or one of the things that in high school city, you had to be in school for at least half the day if, say, you wanted to attend homecoming dance that night.
Right. Exactly. Yep.
So Matt will get back and let us know what should be there.
Yep.
501.10. And the highlighted portion here is in the third paragraph. And it speaks to students receiving special education services. So is this a correct policy?
Well, I think the note with special education students is interesting because we do try to, as much as possible, limit our use of suspensions just in general, because once we hit the 10 days, it becomes problematic for us. And we also have to be considering whether it's behavior manifestation at that point. So again, it goes probably to what Matt was saying earlier, what is our actual practice?
Mm-hmm.
I do think we need to have it limited. I mean, it is limited, but.
So do you think, should we have it spelled out here in this manner, Amy, or?
I guess the question that Justine is asking is it a never?
Oh, they do,
Yes.
I'm sure.
So then it's not a never. So then that's not accurate. Paul's question, right?
Ever for what? I'm missing what you're meaning there.
Or
See
in
the-
school
see the highlighted
suspension.
section?
Yeah.
It
So the
says
question
they
is-
will not be assigned to study hall in school suspension unless the goals and objectives of the students' IEP are capable of being met.
Yeah, but this is just in regards to truancy, right?
Right.
Or absences.
Yes, unexcused
Oh.
absences.
So in this regard, I mean,
Then
I guess it
never is
depends how firm
appropriate.
you want to go on policy, but we don't suspend for truancy issues and we don't expel for
Yeah.
truancy issues. I mean, I think that is probably a policy piece that could support some of your, equity work along that lines. I mean, we'd have grossly disparate suspensions and expulsions if we were really doing that for truancy issues. We'd be suspending a lot more kids. I mean, that's not an effective strategy to employ with kids already missing school to then further suspend them. So you could look at this one quite a bit different and take out, or you could even strengthen and say we're not to suspend for absences or not to expel for absences.
Well, because then it talks about that whole third
Mhm.
paragraph then. So Matt, your recommendation is to include a line that students will not be suspended or expelled based off absences, or how should we frame that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we could come up with a line that essentially said something to that effect, that students are, while students may be subject to disciplinary action for truancy, the district will not suspend or expel students that have been truant from school, something like that. Yeah.
And don't say anything even about special education because it goes for all.
Right. Okay.
Did you catch that? Does that make sense?
So, yeah. Kim, I'm sorry, are you trying? Okay, she's
Yeah,
not.
yeah. So get rid of the whole third paragraph and just sentence that Matt did put in there.
Yeah, that sentence that matches, yes.
We'll keep that first one, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
You might want to keep the second one.
The second line,
Sherman, yep.
yes. Makes
And
sense.
make up the
So, yep, then just the last line, take out and make the edit to the first line. Is everybody tracking that? Okay with that?
Yep.
All right. 501.10 R1. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Just in that second line, I don't know if this is anywhere else, but the pronouns his or her, do we really want to keep those in there? Because
Probably not.
it may not refer to some of our students that don't identify as that.
Yeah.
Change it to-
Throughout
I think
a
this is-
student's lifetime. Oh, Amy,
Matt,
what were you gonna say?
Diane. Well, I'm just looking at about, this is punitive again on what we're going to do to the kids. And
Right.
that's not the approach that we take. So just like our MTSS process for academics and behavior, we should also take an MTSS process for attendance. So wrap supports, figure out why the student is attending and match those supports to them instead of penalizing the student.
Would you want maybe Kate Callahan to take a look at this and kind of think about what our attendance policies are or practices are?
I'm fine with that. Other board members, any thoughts on that?
I'm just wondering if we need this regulation.
Yeah, it seems like it's the same thing we just talked about with more detail that we don't even like.
Yeah,
Right.
my guess is that you don't want all the detail. I think, like Amy said, a statement about what we do, because there are some consequences, right? I mean, the back end consequences, yes, you could still get referred to the county attorney for truancy, but those are our most extreme cases where we've tried everything else. But something more supportive about what do we do proactively, and then what do we do, what consequences could be employed. But yeah, we could have Kate look at that and kind of give that an overhaul essentially and bring it back to you.
Either that, or maybe we don't even need the regulation because we have the policy, and then we have the handbook that she has. So maybe there isn't even.
Yeah, and that's like
Yeah.
our guideline, right? Yeah.
So then if we look back up at, because this is R1, if we look back up to 501.10, should we refer to the handbook at all here? I mean, that way we understand the regulation on how it's handled.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe the last paragraph, we make mention to that. And then we'll strike 501.10 R1. Good?
Works for me.
All right, I see head nods. 501.11. Any changes there?
Looks good to me.
Does this work for secondary schools when there's a free period and the student leaves? Matt, does this need to be addressed in there? I mean, that they don't necessarily have permission from the parents to leave for all those times, but they might.
Yeah, I think we see it kind of as a permission from the onset of the year. If your student's scheduled a open period, then you're giving them that permission to leave. But yeah, it's not we don't do it for every specific situation. You're right, Paul.
What about the secondary students who are leaving to protest that we've had several times? Do we need to say anything about that?
There's actually separate sections in here on that specific thing.
Great.
Farther down.
So is there anything here?
I think it's okay. I mean, I think the prior authorization from the parents is communicated when they have the open hour and what the school's policy regarding open hours or open campus during lunch is.
Okay. 501.12. Anything there?
I'm good.
Good.
To your point earlier, Ruthina, does
Yep,
the word "her" need to be changed?
to they, because I mean, we start that in the first line, as long as they are physically able to. So I think it needs to track throughout the entire paragraph. Other than that, yeah,
There's also a she, so the she's and the hers need to be changed.
yep.
Kim, is that another one you can just do that search for all, and then, because we'll probably just want to do that anywhere, right? That it's a he or she, and then replace it with they. It'll mess with the grammar probably, but
Yeah.
Nope, I'll look at this.
501.13.
I'm confused about what if a student had been paying tuition? What if the parents had been paying tuition and then the child turned to legal age? Why would we say that they don't have to continue paying? What am I missing?
I think it's saying they can continue to do it without payment. So if they're already not paying, they can continue to do it without paying. I don't think it says that it changes if they are paying to not paying.
Okay.
that seems like a very much out of code kind of language too, though. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But besides that, are we good?
yep.
501.14. It's a lot, so tell me when you're ready for me to scroll down.
And I had a question. So there's this as the sending district, and then again it has the same thing as the receiving district. There's somewhere in it, it's like the fourth paragraph. It talks about superintendent notifying within 5 days. Is it 5 days of like we would approve it in consent agenda, and then you have 5 days to say here's what the decision was, or 5 days from the time they make a request? Because I don't think that's possible. I'm just not clear on what it's saying.
I thought it meant 5 days of consent agenda approval or
Yeah, that's correct.
denial.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's after the actual action, which is
Is
it?
different, guys. Yeah.
Are we good that way? I mean, do we do that within the 5 days?
Yeah, we notify them right away.
Okay. I think that was the only question I had in this section. So
Anything else in this section? I'll scroll down to
Matt, does this match up with our athletics policy?
Oops, I lost it. Sorry. Give me a second.
I didn't see any did it talk about eligibility in there anywhere, Paul? I was still,
Yeah, it's in the, well, if we were on to 501.15, it talks about receiving district, and then it's, says
Is that where
there,
we were? 501.15? Okay.
Yeah.
it says they will not be eligible for participation in interscholastic athletics at the varsity level during the first 90 days of open enrollment into the school district.
yep, that's
But
right.
it also specifically says varsity. Does that need to be stricken in just athletics in general?
No, it's just varsity.
It's
So they
varsity.
could like still practice. They could play JV, fresh soft. They just can't do the varsity competition for 90 days. And then that
Mhm.
matches, just an FYI, that matches what we did, remember guys, too, on our transfers. So if we have a kid moving
Yep.
between high schools, we're consistent
So-
with the state language around open enrollment on that.
Yeah, that's our in-district transfer too.
So that's, just to be clear, that's if the student started and they were on the freshman team and then they got moved up to varsity, you still have that 90-day window. It's total, right? So it's not just, I'm just trying to figure out the go around.
Yeah, so if they could start the season on freshmen, and then when their 90 days were up, then they could move to the varsity competitions. So they could still go out for the sport, practice, participate, play on the JV team, and then when their 90-day period ended, then they could immediately be eligible for varsity. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Okay.
thought I read somewhere in one of those policies it said, and I don't know if it was in this section or somewhere else, but it talks about I don't know if we're just not in school. Say I don't know a virus closes schools for like 3 months. Somewhere in there it talks about that counting towards their time.
Yep.
So basically, anybody's got a free pass now? I don't, or no?
Well,
Only if they were already transferred.
So the clock hasn't started for anybody.
yeah, the minute that their transfer is granted, then the ineligibility window would start. And so the date of their transfer being approved, then we'd start their ineligibility clock. And I guess their reasoning, right, kids are already missing enough with being not able to participate that they're not going to penalize them twice.
Okay.
501.16. So here we have to, the yellow portion, insert who's designated as the local homeless children and youth liaison.
Are you asking who, Ruthie?
Yes, because we have to insert their
Yes.
title.
Joan Vandenberg.
So what's her title?
Youth and Family Development
Coordinator.
Coordinator. right?
Coordinator.
Coordinator.
Mhm.
Great. So
Can we
besides,
just have it say, the board shall designate a homeless children and youth liaison? So that if titles change and whoever does it changes, it's still, we've just designated who the liaison is? The end? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Mhm.
Kim, did you track that or you need him to repeat it? Is Kim frozen?
She looks like it.
Yeah,
And all kinds of internet issues today.
I'm just making a note of that so I can share it with her when she comes back. .1. Anything there?
I'll tell you, as the outsider, this is the first one that, as I started to go through it, that I'm like, I have no idea what policies and handbooks we have in place and what we say about these sorts of things. So this is where I was
Well,
going to be looking for probably the most
So-
input.
Kingsley actually went through a long process of getting this cleaned up because it used to have all kinds of stupidity in here, and he really did a nice job getting it cleaned up and substantially shorter than it was before. So Matt, Chase, I think you guys were here when we did that. I mean, we had Paul shaking his head. I mean, remember Paul had everything in there from like with the straps and stuff like that, and we purged all that stuff and he had a committee that worked on it to get down to this, I don't know, I'd almost call like generic language.
Yeah, he did a nice job. He took a lot of the bias out of the language that was in the
Yeah.
in the text, and I think it's a pretty fair and generic one. Of course, we still work on our application of that in the school buildings, like you said, when we get to specific situations. But I think from a policy standpoint, this one's in pretty good shape.
But do we need to add what we actually have down for that? I know it's in the guidebooks, or handbooks. Do we just need to have it referenced to that or not?
I think
I
the
think that-
handbooks need to reference that, Paul.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think
Yeah, that's what I would say.
might be wrong. You know, if there's gonna be an error one place, it'd be more likely to be in the handbook than here. So
Yeah.
we need
So
to get this.
that last paragraph that says that SOUP with principals develops admin regs. So that would be what's in our handbooks in both the high school and the junior high and the elementary handbooks. You could put it in here as an R1, R2, R3. And certainly that's appropriate if you want to do that. But then like they said, definitely it needs to be referenced in the actual handbook so that the policy is cited in there.
So instead of having that administrative regulations there, what it refers to, why don't we strike that language and just say everybody needs to use this language in the handbook? Because then that's where we start to see the deviation and people are starting to say, no, the kids can't have their hoods up and things like that. And I think as generic as it's become, I don't want any leeway. And I'm afraid that we have that now.
Just looking at I'm looking at it in the elementary handbook right now, and it basically it is the exact same language for the first two paragraphs or most of the third paragraph, but we added some stuff in there. The fourth paragraph is the same, and then we have a fifth paragraph that's in our handbook that's not on this policy.
Yeah, we need to get it out. I'm working on that for next year already.
So then, to Amy's point, it should end with it's the referencing that all other handbooks should follow this policy.
Right, the
Something to that
handbooks use
nature.
this policy, yeah. This handbook, this policy is included in all handbooks or something like that.
But not just included, but because as Paul mentioned, like his elementary includes it to the
But then
extent.
adds to it, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
you could
this,
change that last line, Ruthina, just to say it's the responsibility of the superintendent in conjunction with the principals to reflect this language in their handbooks, or to develop handbooks that should reflect the language in this policy.
okay.
Let's see up top here. Did we ever get Kim back?
Nope. No, Kim.
No, Kim, okay.
502.2. Anything here?
Sorry to go back, but just looking at
Yep.
our old administrative guideline. So there's nowhere in there where it says, never mind, it's in the last paragraph, so we're good.
Okay. So 502.2, anything there? No?
I just snicker at the first sentence that they're gonna treat district property the way they treat their own property, because they're not exactly great with their own stuff either. So.
Okay. No? 502.3.
This is
Kim
one that-
text, she's just having problems with her internet still. She says she's connected to the Ethernet, but it's still not working. So
Okay.
I'm sure Ruthina's taking great notes to pass on to her. So.
Sure. Good thing she's recording, I think. Anything here? Or are we reading?
we're reading.
Okay.
Yeah, this is one where they're talking about people, that, the students walking out of
Walk-ins,
class and
yeah.
things like that. So.
Let me know if you need me to scroll down. Or make smaller. There we go.
The last paragraph there, the second sentence where it just says employees are responsible for ensuring students' expression. The employees, that's a very general word. I'm not sure how I'd take that one necessarily,
Thoughts on Sean's concerns?
Well, I think I do think it's important that it's kept in there that way. And I started thinking about that. I mean, you just look at all the legal references down below. This is the place where we can get into hot water fast. And I do think our employees need to understand what students what students legally have the right to do. So I guess I'm not as bothered by that.
Yes, I read it as it's giving basically every employee the responsibility to police the students at that point.
Mm.
So don't tell Brady, but I'm channeling him since he's not here, and I see his concern being the exact opposite, Sean. That that he would see that without some stuff pretty specific from the administration in terms of regulations, that we would try to unduly hold teachers accountable for student speech or not taking steps that, you know, we thought they should have related to this. So I see what you're saying about maybe some ambiguity with that language in there.
It's kind of tricky because it comes after that line about disciplinary measures.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I read that sentence the same way Amy was about, it's really saying students should be expected to have that right of expression, but it just seems awkward that it's right after the disciplinary measures one.
Because I just think of some of the things that Brady shared with us, and you know, in terms of interactions he has, Matt, you know, and thinking, would he see some of those as him not doing while he's doing what he believes is right by students, would it be outside of maybe how somebody would interpret this policy, you know?
Right.
What if you just pulled the sentences apart and put one of them in a different spot? I do think since they're next to each other, it's a little bit problematic.
I mean, technically, you could take that sentence out, right? Like, because
Yeah.
the next one really encompasses it. I mean, if the superintendent has to develop administrative regulations, those
So
are going to apply to both students and potentially staff without drawing specific attention to it.
And honestly, employees are responsible for every single policy that's
Right.
there. So why point
That's
this
the other
way?
thing. So it is on
Yeah.
both. And then if it's saying both, then what's the point of having it in there at all? Because it
Yeah.
is saying they probably will be asked to help monitor and keep everybody safe and that students are following the appropriate measures, but they're also expected to respect the student's right to expression. So maybe it's just redundant.
So maybe we can take out the first two paragraphs and just leave the last one?
The sentences you
You mean sentences?
Oh, yeah,
not
sentences,
Yeah.
sorry. Long day. Yes, the first two sentences of that paragraph.
I don't know about the first sentence, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, there's inappropriate ways to express too, right? And so oftentimes when we've had these walkouts, you know, we haven't even always marked them unexcused absences or things like that. But obviously if a student was grossly misbehaving in one of these situations or disrupting the whole school or doing something inappropriate, they still would be subjected to discipline. So
Okay,
I think just that my
Just the
recommendation would
second.
take out the second sentence like Chase said and
okay.
leave the other one in there.
Okay, taking out the second sentence. 502.4.
Kim's trying something different with her internet again. Ruthina, if you're taking
Yeah.
out, well, she's in and out, just so we don't
Yeah,
lose track. Okay.
anything here? Anybody?
It looks kind of like the way we'd handle things, right? Start at the lowest level and
And then move up.
work your way up.
Is that right?
Is this supposed to encompass our whole like bullying policy too? Like if a student has a bullying complaint or a harassment complaint, are those somewhere else?
Yeah, I would tell you from where Diane's going, I think it doesn't necessarily happen in practice this way, right? That they're not necessarily going right to the teacher. A lot of times they are going right to an administrator or principal, and the way that's written just says should be addressed with the teacher, and maybe that's fine. That says other than the administration for resolution, but
Okay, because I was just going back to the first paragraph where it seems to apply that it's talking about grievances and complaints related to board policy and administrative regulations.
There you go. Yeah.
So not that.
Right.
I'm guessing that, to Diane's point, the bullying is dealt with in another, I think it is, I can't remember where, but it has to be
I think it's in
somewhere
the
else.
600 series.
Okay,
Yeah, it'd be more like they have a complaint about what our policy is against
Right.
bullying, as opposed to I have
right,
a complaint that I'm being bullied. That's a separate thing.
right. We're good there.
Think so?
Okay, because I'm getting the warning to get off our internet. So I want to move back to, I'm going
Then
to
you got like 800 things that Kim's got to change while she was off.
I know, but I'll give
holiday.
her my notes. I'll email her. So I'm putting a note here and I'm stopping sharing my screen. And we can talk about the next meeting. I was hopeful that, and I don't know how people scheduled from the last doodle poll, if people can still meet on the 14th, next Monday.
I think
and
it
we'll
was
jump-
this Thursday, wasn't it?
Oh wait, whenever the 14th is, I don't know.
This Thursday.
Okay, this Thursday. Does that work for folks and we can keep chugging through the 500 series?
I love seeing all your faces, so it's okay by me.
All right. Then is there a motion to adjourn? We'll meet Thursday.
I move to
4
adjourn.
o'clock, Rosina?
Yeah, does 4 still work for everybody? All right.
Yes.
Hear no complaints. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, yeah. Paul, I see you smiling. I'll take that. So, meeting is adjourned. See you guys tomorrow. Dang it, tomorrow. Okay, see you guys tomorrow.
See you every day.
Yes, bye.
Bye.
Aye.